What's up, folks? Last time we learned about points, lines, and planes. Today we're leveling up and learning about rays, line segments, and angles. Let's check it out. Geometry. Today we're going to be talking about rays, line segments, and angles. Now, what is a ray? Well, let's start with a line, okay? This right here is a line, right? It goes on infinitely in both directions. Now, imagine I chop off this part of the line and instead I put an endpoint, right? Okay, this is like a finite little point and the ray goes infinitely in this direction only. Well, if I call this point A and this B, then I can call this ray AB and put this little symbol on top to denote the fact that it's a ray. That's what a ray is. Let me show you one more example. Imagine I have a line from C to D. Well, I can call this line CD, right? But now, what if I chopped off a part of this line? In other words, what if I took this infinitely long part of the line and replaced it with an endpoint? And let's call that endpoint D. Well, now this would become a ray. It wouldn't be a line anymore. This is now a ray. It's almost like an arrow, right? You see, it's like an arrow, but it goes infinitely long in only one direction, and in the other direction it has an endpoint. Line segments. So what are line segments? Well, line segments, let's start with a line first of all. Now, if I chop off one part of the line and put an endpoint here, what does this become? This is a ray, remember? What if I chop off the other part and put an endpoint there as well? Well, now it's a line segment. It's not a line, it's not a ray, it's a line segment, okay? It's like if you took an arrow and chopped off both parts and boom, that's what you're left with. Now, a line segment has two endpoints, right? So if I call this A and I call this B, the line segment AB. If I wanted to say, hey, find me the length of AB, well, I can just write these kind of absolute value symbols and put AB in the middle. So that's what a line segment is. Now let's move on to angles. So here's a ray. Now this is a ray, and how can you tell? Well, it has an endpoint here, one endpoint, and in the other direction it goes on infinitely forever. Now what if I have another ray? So something like this. Well, then whatever, right? I got two rays. But what if these rays share a common endpoint? In other words, what if these two endpoints were in the same location? What would that look like? This one's endpoint, here it is, and boom. What you got right here is an angle. This right here is called an angle. An angle is formed when two rays share a common endpoint, right here in this case. So for example, if I were to name this A and this E and this K, this would be angle AEK, right? You read it in this direction, AEK. That's what an angle is. And let's talk about some of the different types of angles. Right? So you have lots of types of angles actually. For example, this is a very skinny angle, right? You see how skinny it is? Imagine these are the teeth of an alligator. If this was the mouth of an alligator, you can imagine this is a pretty small mouth, pretty skinny mouth. This, on the other hand, is a wider mouth, right? This right here is even wider, right? Imagine. Okay? And what else? What if you have an even bigger mouth? Wow, an even bigger angle. So we have different names for these things. So for example, if your angle looks like this and it has this kind of symbol here, this is called a 90-degree angle. Imagine the hands of a clock look like this. Well, we would say the hands of the clock are 90 degrees to each other. This is 90 degrees, and we compare everything else with respect to this. So for example, this angle, clearly it's smaller than this one, right? You can see how skinny it is. So this would be less than 90. So with this one, right? You see how it's smaller than this 90-degree angle. This one is also less than 90. What about this one? Well, this one you can actually see it has a big gaping wide angle. So this one is actually greater than 90 degrees. And so we have different names for all of these angles, right? So for example, this angle right here, this is called acute. When you have an angle less than 90, you call it acute. And it's pretty cute if you ask me. This is an acute angle. What about this one? This is an obtuse angle because the angle is greater than 90 degrees. The angle that's exactly 90 degrees, well, we have a special name for that. We call it a right angle. As if the other ones are wrong, right? So this is a right angle equal to 90 degrees. This is an acute angle less than 90 degrees. This is an obtuse angle greater than 90 degrees. One last thing we're going to cover today, and that's adjacent angles. So for example, do you see these two angles? Here's my first set of angles. Here's my first set. Here's one pair of angles, and here's my second pair of angles. Right? You can see how they share a common endpoint and a common ray. So how can I like kind of name this angle? Well, check it out. Let's say this is A, this is B, this is C, and this is D, right? I'm just putting letters. I could have called this E if I wanted, or I could have called this P if I wanted, but it doesn't really matter. How do we name this adjacent angle? Well, we can say this blue angle right here, this blue angle right here, I can say that's angle ABC. How do you write the angle symbol? Well, you write it like this little symbol right here. That tells me that this is angle ABC. What about the red angle? What about this one? How can I name this red angle? Well, we call this one angle CBE. And how about this gigantic angle? Do you see this huge angle? This huge angle that's kind of the bigger than both of these. Well, that big angle is called angle ABE, right? Hopefully that makes sense. The big angle is angle ABE. All right, folks, so hopefully that was a good introduction to rays, line segments, and angles. Hopefully now you know what a ray is, what a line segment is, what an angle is, what the three types of angles are, right, acute and obtuse, and finally what adjacent angles are and how you can name them. All right, folks, that's a nice introduction to rays, line segments, and angles, and adjacent angles. We'll check you out